Hey everyone! In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts about the restaurant business, how it's going to change, which restaurants are going to survive, and how I see the future of the entire industry. So let's do that. Okay, so before we start, I just want to give you guys a little bit of a background. I worked with the F&B industry, specifically in technology and sales online for deliveries or pickup for the last 2 years. And we operated in different regions, including the Middle East and Africa. And within that period, I learned a lot about the industry itself and its current status. We've done a lot of very successful and a lot of failed experiments. And I'd like to share what I learned from that and how restaurant owners can leverage that so that they come out as winners after this pandemic. The restaurant industry is probably the one to suffer the most due to the pandemic. Studies show that they have the least amount of cash on hand or liquid that they're able to sustain without being operational. I mean, it's obvious to understand. People are not going out as much. In some countries, there is a complete lockdown, and some businesses have been shut down for more than 2 months. It is very hard for any business to survive that, and especially restaurants. But let's take a few steps back and talk about what used to be happening. The restaurant business started with not only the food itself, but also an experience. That's why they used to open all of these places, get all of these nice chairs and tables, create an atmosphere where the customer would come and pay for an entire experience and enjoy the food. Now, bit by bit, people started having less and less time, and so they wanted to start eating at home. And thus delivery grew. And it started with the phone. Either restaurants on their own used to get that, or they used to hire specific call centers that were able to get their orders, process them, and give them over. Now, as technology grew and the internet became much more apparent, people started wanting to order online. And that started kind of weakly with websites, but it grew massively when the apps came along. And that's where aggregators started spawning. And what happened here simply is it wasn't about the technology per se, and rather the marketing or digital marketing aspect of things. Restaurant owners are very busy. They don't have much time, although I disagree with that aspect of feeling like this is not your core responsibility. And thus they started outsourcing the marketing part, the customer communication part, to these aggregators. Now, for those of you who don't know, aggregators simply sign a deal with specific restaurants and they get a specific commission that can go anywhere between maybe 2 to 3% to up to 30% in some cases, varying between the country, the cuisine, the brand, and so on. What the aggregator does in essence is simply marketing. They spend a lot of money to get a customer in who can see all of these restaurants, order from one of them, and then it gets delivered. Now, what happened here is a lot of these restaurants started feeling like they were lobbying their own businesses. Simply put, some of them actually started getting a much bigger chunk of sales from the aggregators than they were getting on their own, whether through walk-ins or their own delivery channels. Because they're getting such big commissions, the restaurant owners started suffering. Because yes, they would sell more per se, but their chunk of revenue coming back was much lower. Restaurants usually do not make super high margins. It could get up to 40% in the best cases, and thus getting 30 or 20% is really a significant amount of that revenue. Now, there is no place on this earth or universe where two businesses can work together where it's not a win-win. If they don't both get something out of this, it simply means you're building a hate relationship, which is exactly what the current status of the aggregators and restaurants relationship is. They hate them. Restaurants want out. They don't know how to get rid of these aggregators because they're dependent on them so much. The aggregators today own the customer, simply meaning the customer who buys from restaurant A doesn't really belong to that restaurant and rather belongs to the aggregator. When they're hungry, they're going to go to the aggregator. If they find a deal from restaurant B, they're probably going to ditch restaurant A and go for restaurant B, meaning they do not own the customer. Now, as restaurant owners are starting to become aware of this, in many places around the world, they're taking action, such as in the UAE, where the restaurant owners now want to create their own app or platform, let's call it a union maybe, where you're able to order food from them directly. So, the aggregator restaurant relationship is about to die. What did the corona pandemic do? It simply accelerated this end result. Now it's much closer to reality. Restaurant owners, because they're suffering, they've been suffocated so hard by the pandemic and the lockdown, they now feel like, I hate this entity so much. Like, it's not something that I will even bear now, and they want out. Before I go on, please smash that like button. Kill it, destroy it, do whatever you want with it, because it really helps. And if you find this interesting, I'm going to be talking about all things from startups, businesses, and life in general. So please hit that subscribe, and don't forget the bell button as well, so that you get notified when we get new videos. So what is the future of the F&B industry in my own opinion? Well, I think number one, the restaurant owner is going to change significantly. A restaurant owner is not going to be anymore a person who understands how to cook, is not a person who understands how the kitchen is run, is not a person who understands how to find the cheapest raw material, for instance. A person who is going to own a successful business in these coming years is simply going to be a very digitally aware person. So current restaurant owners either need to educate themselves about that specific aspect, digital marketing, digital sales, or they need to simply give over their businesses, maybe shut them down, or just give them over to someone who understands that aspect. Because this is going to be the number one driving factor of business for them. Yes, high-end restaurants will still have a privilege in which people will want to have that experience of a dine-in, but the majority of restaurants, along with high-end restaurants, will need to understand how to get eyeballs in the digital virtual world and how to turn these eyeballs into customers. So let's say I own a restaurant today. What would I do about it? Number one, I would shut off my commercial locations. I do not see a need in which a restaurant really needs to own a commercial location per se. Of course, some restaurants are not going to work without a physical location, but most will. If you're probably in the fast food kind of industry, then there's a 1% chance that you need to have a commercial location. Commercial locations are very expensive. The rent is very high. The renovations that you need to constantly do, keeping it running, keeping the experience really nice and lovely in that location is something that is very expensive. And for me, I don't really see what the value of it with the changing consumer behaviors that we're witnessing today. So I would go and get a basement. Of course, we'd need to abide by health regulations and turn it into a kitchen. Now, a lot of people are gonna think I'm simply referring to a ghost kitchen, in which this kitchen is simply set for delivery only, optimized for that, and all it does is people who deliver come and pick up the food that's ready and deliver it to the customer. And I'm not really referring to a simple ghost kitchen, but rather I think restaurants should turn themselves into a complete virtual entity. When you do not have a commercial location, the end consumer actually never sees you other than online or on the internet, whether that's inside aggregators or on your own digital channel. So you could call yourself the crazy little chick, right? And you could be selling fried chicken like crazy. People love it, it's awesome. Some people don't like it, whatever it is. What if in that same kitchen, you also create a new brand called the Red Frog that's actually a chicken? What if you start selling and you actually package the food, the same recipe in a stock packaging? You simply have a sticker or something that you can place for each brand, place it on each of those meals, rebrand the entire thing, rename the specific meals or products that you're selling, and then start selling under a different website or a different Facebook page or a different Instagram account or whatever it is that you want to sell on. A single fried chicken kitchen needs to become 4 or 5 maybe different brands that are marketed efficiently to a different segment, leveraging these different brands to actually consume the biggest chunk of the market. So what am I saying here? Let's take this example. Sales are not good this week at all. So you're thinking about, why don't I sell like 20 pieces of chicken that I used to sell for like $15, let me sell them for 10. Now, if you do that with one specific brand that is catered to people who make more money, which is kind of your high-end fried chicken, then you're probably going to lose a lot of these customers who were ready to pay with the $15, and they will never buy that product again until you discount it and give it to them for 10. But what if you sell the same product under brand B for $10? Then people who go to brand B are the ones who want the cheaper product. They want the discounts. They are the ones who you would have lost anyway to another competing business. In this way, you cater to a different set of customers, different set of age ranges, because you can create a different story with the different brands that you create. So simply said, for every single restaurant owner or somebody who is interested for some reason at this specific point, I don't know why, but probably down the road, interested in creating a restaurant, the core skills you need to get are digital marketing, digital sales, and branding. If you're able to do these three, trust me, you're going to be able to create an endless amount of brands under the same roof, the same kitchen, with minimal staff, and be able to produce a lot of money without running into these hurdles. So that's all I think. I'd love to hear what you guys think as well. So please don't be shy to comment and ask or object or say whatever it is that you think, and I'll see you guys next time.